Welcome to New Light Living Podcast. I'm Ulrika Sullivan. I'm an intuitive spiritual life coach and a galactic astrologer. Today, I have amazing Alicia Love with me, and she is a beautiful emanation of divine feminine. And we're going to talk about Venus today, because Venus, I have a sense that Venus is going to have a major role moving forward in our evolution, in our transformation as a collective here on Earth. So I invited Alicia to come talk about, what is it really that we need to follow in terms of Venus's cycle and Venus, the importance of the Venus story, if you will, when it comes to the heart-centered leadership that we are all asked to step into in the future, and if not in the future, right now. So welcome, Alicia. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much, Ulrika. I love talking to you. I love being here on your podcast. Thank you for inviting me to talk about Venus and how powerful she is for our lives. I am a soul coach and a intuitive shamanic astrologer, and I help empower the feminine on this planet. So this is my planet. This is my favorite story. This is my most passionate thing that is activating the leadership in my life and how I love to share for others so that they can be empowered as well. So thanks for having
Oh,
me.
so beautiful. Thank you. So we're going to kick off this conversation about, I want to ask you, what's your take on why we should pay attention to Venus and her, how she's traversing through the sky and what she's here for right now in our lives?
Yeah, definitely. So Venus is our sister planet. She's the closest to Earth, and she has a beautiful cycle. They call it the synodic cycle when it's the view, not just her orbit around the sun, but the view from the Earth. And she makes a beautiful 5-petaled rose or 5-pointed star shape in a 9-year cycle. And every 19 months, she comes the closest to Earth, and she's about to do that again when she goes retrograde in Leo. She's already in Leo right now. And this is that heart-centered leadership in Leo that we're talking about. And the overarching cycle of Venus, she goes through in each of those 5 points of the star, a different highlight, or what we call in shamanic astrology, a meta goddess phase. And that's bringing in the feminine. And we used to talk about Venus as she's just the planet of love, right? That's all she rules. But she's so much more than that. The feminine is so much more than just how we love. She is how we are empowered in all the aspects of the feminine. And that's our creativity. And it's a certain kind of leadership. It's not the same as the masculine. And there's just so many aspects that I like to talk about as equal. Love is one amazing aspect, creativity, another amazing aspect, leadership. And we could just go on and on for all the things that Venus rules over for our lives. And being that she is the closest planet, she really affects us as an inner planet so strongly. And our planet Earth is going through such a feminine revolution. I think it's really important to talk about the story and the cycle that Venus can show us more of how to embody that feminine in balance moving forward.
I love that you mentioned the word balance, because right now also Venus and Mars are very much in conjunction with each other, following each other in Leo very closely. So this is a very timely topic because of that, but also a Venus retrograde coming up soon. So thank you for bringing all of this to us today. Now, can you tell us a little bit about, because Venus, as you mentioned, have this beautiful sacred geometry almost as a path in the sky, and everyone has a specific point called the Venus star point in their chart, which is different from the natal Venus degree, if you will. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because part of it is also to get to know Venus, as you say, as someone, as an energy that is much more than just how we love. Can you tell us a little bit about the Venus star point and why that is important now to kind of start identifying that in our charts and learn about what that is all about?
Yes, the Venus star point is the beginning of that 19-month cycle. It is when Venus conjuncts the sun on this side between the Earth and the sun, and it's going to be in Leo, right? We're going to have this Venus star point. So the cycle we're finishing right now, the Venus star point was in Capricorn. And so we call that a Capricorn metagoddess, in that the whole cycle has that energy of Capricorn that we're working with. And in this cycle, we've been calling it that crone, wise woman energy. Whereas with Venus star point in Leo, it's going to be this heart-centered leadership and how we can bring that fire of transformation to our lives. And then my Venus star point is in Gemini, and the twins, that is just the multifaceted planet of or not planet, but a sign of communication, and how my love and the way that I operate is very much around how I can communicate that and talk about it. And I share so much about what I love with people in conversation. And then your star point is Aries, right? And
That's
that means
right.
that you were born in that cycle where, again, another fiery energy of, starting new things with galactic astrology really coming to light. You're really like leading the forefront and starting something new with passion of yours. And I really believe that comes from your Venus and Aries and that star point. So depending on someone's star point, they've got that general energy, and then Venus goes through all of the signs through her 19-month cycle. And I happen to be at the very beginning of the Venus star point. My Venus is still in Gemini, so I was there at the very beginning, that first gate, and we'll talk about the chakras and the gates and how that aligns with the Innana story in a little bit. But you also were born in that morning star phase, which is a bit of a warrior for things. You're passionate about things. And that first half of the cycle, the morning star phase, yours is in the heart chakra. And so that brings in a layered, energetic, different elements and how we work with Venus for our own natal charts.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that this point in our charts have somewhat been a little bit, not so much talked about. But now we are actually asked to start paying more attention to that Venus star point in our chart, which is easy to identify based on, our birth date, and there are tables for this too, that we may not consult as often. But now, with heart-centered leadership coming more in as an energy, and we're asked to step into that, the Venus star point and the interpretation of that will be becoming much more important, and we can learn a lot about ourselves and the way we do heart-centered leadership through this Venus star point. So great point here that you're bringing up, that it's time to start paying attention to this area in our chart and learn from it, because it can really show us where we are blooming right now and moving forward in our leadership. So thanks for bringing
I love
that in.
word. Blooming. Yes, I just love that. This is the they used to call it the layers of the onion. I like to say the petals, right? The emerging petals of that blossom of consciousness, and how there's just more information coming to us. We're getting new downloads and new divine codes to incorporate.
Yeah. So you mentioned the link here into Innana, and the queen of heaven and earth. And why is she, that myth, if you will, or that story, important now?
We have been able to link that ancient story from 3000 BC from the Sumerians in Babylonia time, that it was really one of the first mythology stories ever written down. And Inanna being the queen of heaven and earth, she's that divine feminine. She ruled the harvest and so many aspects of the feminine that we acknowledge. And in the story, she puts her ear to her intuition. She listens to the earth and she hears the call to go to the underworld to visit her sister whose husband just died. Her sister is Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld. And in ancient times, they related this energy of the underworld, understanding of what happens when we go through death and rebirth cycles in our lives, to Venus. And so Venus is named for the goddess, Roman goddess of love, right? And that's also Aphrodite. And her original name was Inanna. And then it became Ishtar and Isis, and all of these cultures, we name this divine feminine energy in our era, whatever the story is.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is one of the original stories. And they tell the story of Inanna gathering herself up. We're in that phase right now, kind of getting ready. When she goes retrograde, that's the beginning of the getting ready. And then when she travels through the 7 gates to the underworld, those are the 7 lunar conjunctions. And there's usually an 8th one in there too. And we kind of name that one as part of the story as well. But each of those 7 lunar conjunctions to Venus are represented by the 7 gates of our chakras. And so in the story, she removes an article of clothing at every gate. It's like part of the rules, the requirements. And generally, the rule is you go to the underworld, you can't come back, right? And all of our mythology stories of Persephone going to the underworld, having to stay there for a certain amount of time and is not allowed to leave, and then, makes an agreement, is allowed to leave. So this cyclical story is something that we've, as humans, related to because of the cycles that we feel from the moon and of the seasons. And Venus is a part of this story. And so as the morning star, we see Venus in the morning sky just before the sun rises, and she conjuncts the 7 moons down to the underworld. And that's when she is then on the other side of the earth, on the other side of the sun. So she's the farthest away point. And that's when she enters the underworld and she goes through this drama with her sister. She has to die because she's in the underworld. And that's the part of us that is dying and being reborn. And then she is dead. She has to be revived and come back to life. And then she's allowed to leave. And there's a whole extra bit to that story too, I won't go into. And she gets to bring back those articles of clothing and reinstate the chakra energies. And so as we're going through the story, I love to energetically work with my chakras and remove those egoic, earthly, the things that have been limiting us from being in our full divine source energy. And then we go through that transformation phase. And when we come back out and are reclaiming each of those energies in our chakras, we are wiser, we have more intention, and we can see the parts that we want to bloom or emerge more in our lives. And then we go through the cycle again.
Yeah. Ooh, I feel that this is very much the message of this time, Venus, Mars currently being so close to each other, and asking us to balance the masculine, feminine, but the link here to the energy, the life's force, and through our gates within ourselves too, in terms of the chakras. So is this a 19-month cycle?
Yes.
So on that cycle, where are we now at this time?
We
We're
just,
in June 2023, if you're
yes,
watching this later. But
right.
where are we now, right now, in that cycle relating to the story and our chakras? I'm just curious.
We just got to put the crown back on in the seventh chakra. So is just
Ah,
finally fully in her Capricorn Meta Goddess energy, fully embodied. And we're working with that layer of divinity that aligns our whole energy system and brings us closest to our higher self and the wisdom and downloads from that whole cycle coming to its completion.
oh, wow. So, what is the message here at this time, given all of that, with the Venus retrograde coming up? Like, what is the Venus purpose here of that retrograde at this time? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, right.
What's
Well,
your
you know
interpretation?
that all retrogrades that happen are a chance for us to review and restore, renew. All the re words are the retrograde words. And so we know we get Mercury retrogrades like 3 times a year. We get this Venus retrograde once every 19 months. And it's a time to reflect. It's a time
Yeah.
to restore and reconnect to those energies and prepare for this next leap forward into a new cycle. So it's a big integration time right now. And like you
Mhm.
said, Venus and Mars being so close together, that's another huge element that we want to call in integration in a balanced way, bringing in the divine feminine for all humans, right? Masculine, feminine, non binary, we are all reintegrating on this planet this feminine energy with our masculine energy. And this, the ending of the cycle being from the Capricorn star point, is an earth energy, a wisdom of the structures that need to be rebuilt. And hopefully that we all have been rebuilding. I mean, post COVID lockdown, we've all had to rebuild our lives in different ways. And that's been this last 19-month cycle, is the Capricorn energy of building that structure. And now that Venus has gone into Leo and we're putting the crown on and we're in our most empowered selves to then look at our lives and see, okay, now what is it that I want to step into next? What is it
Right.
that I'm ready for in my heart-centered leadership that I'll be working with over the next 19 months?
Such great messages. And yeah, and if you think of the degrees that Venus is retrograding, starting the retrograde at 28 degrees, which is really, in the
Close to the
height
end.
of spirituality, right? The third decan of Leo, going back to 12 degrees, which is really the somewhat the beginning of the mental second decan type of domain. So yeah, I think the message that's coming to me here and right now is that integration between our spirituality and the mental domain, the spirituality being the domain of the heart versus our mind, and how we actually balance that and give give ample space to the heart space as well. And I think that's part of what Venus really wants us to do, right?
Yes, that's so beautifully said. I love, and also that crown energy. It is how we think about things in our more divine alignment. And for me, it's always about connecting the heart to the
Hmm.
mind, right? And working with both integration and connecting the two.
Yeah, wow. Well, I think the message here is to really pay attention to Venus's cycle and Venus's messages. And I see her definitely being, the one of the leading forces here as we move forward, coming out of the retrograde later this year. Yeah, coming to a thought here as far as any other milestones that Venus is making for the rest of the year
One
that
of
we
the
should pay attention to.
Yes, one of the big things I noticed when looking at Venus over these next 3 months at the beginning, kind of the retrograde starts on the first day of the sun in Leo, and we'll have Lilith as a major player because she has some powerful conjunctions and she also has a retrograde phase during this time. And she moves direct before Venus moves direct. And then once Venus conjuncts the sun and does that star point on August 13th, she's getting ready to birth that new moon cycle. She starts as the morning star August 19th. And yeah, Lilith is a big player in that. I'm really seeing that as, you know, that we consider Lilith the dark feminine, or she's also the wild feminine. She's the rebel. She's the one that's going to do what she needs to do for her. And that's not disregarding others, but it is a part of the feminine we do need to reclaim as women, especially because women tend to nurture others before themselves. And we've been kind of conditioned in this patriarch or masculine society to take this role of the nurturer, and we don't have a voice for leadership and a voice for the empowerment that we're looking for as women. We're definitely looking for that, and Lilith is the one to help us with that. She is right there as a sister with Venus to that feminine part of each and every one of us that needs to be wild and free and liberated. And she speaks to that need for sovereignty that Venus also speaks to. So I like how those two are going to be weaving together some of those magical energies and messages.
Yeah, they seem to have a plan together. That's for sure.
They do. It's so great.
Now, if somebody is listening or watching to this, and this Venus kind of highlight or increased importance of Venus sounds like a really, exciting idea, how would one start to incorporate the Venus cycle view and also link it into the gates and the chakras that we talked about? How would one start exploring that? Would you recommend?
I've been on my own journey of this. So over the last 2 years, the Innana story was introduced to me and the idea of going through my chakras. And then I found a wonderful teacher, Kaylin Castell for Venus Alchemy, that has a program that teaches astrologers or people that are really into this how to follow the gates and embody them. And through the work that I've done with Sistership Circle as a feminine leader and helping other women become leaders through that organization, I am creating a program to bring women through the gates and through this wisdom to actually connect with it on a human level, to embody it in a circle of women together. And you can do it on your own. You can look up all the information. There are some good books out there, but to weave it all together can take a really long time to really understand. And so those of us that are working with this energy and really helping to disseminate it to you, right? The ones that are listening to this or watching this, I would love to be a leader in this field and helping people to follow this cycle and learn more about it as they
Yeah.
and you can look up the chart and see the Venus lunar conjunctions, but you can get kind of lost in the story if you don't have it fully mapped out. So that's what I've been working on this summer.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're bringing it into a perspective of embodiment too, because it is very much so that it's an embodied practice to be stepping into heart-centered leadership. It's not just some idea with a bunch of hearts on. It is actually a highlight, a
Practice.
priority. Yeah, it's a practice.
Mhm.
It's a way of being, and I think that's why it also feels so strongly that in our daily tracking of energies, like we do in an astrology chart, or we read our transits, right? It's time to start doing that in a different way. Not only, adding the galactic view, but also to know who are the real who is in the forefront in our chart of prominence in terms of changing the world and changing the way we live, and the perspective of ourselves. And I have a strong feeling that Venus has a very big part in that, and Lilith, and many of the other asteroids like Sedna, Haumea, Eris. Those are going to be, ask us 10 years from now, like, who are we really focusing on in our charts nowadays? It's those.
Yes,
So
the goddess asteroids, a lot of them. Yeah, it's so
yes.
true.
So it
And
feels like we're really expanding our understanding in our conversation here today about Venus and her role, and expand it from this, okay, it's how we love and beauty and all of that. Like, now we're we're expanding it
so much
into,
bigger than that.
yeah, so much bigger, and how we can incorporate that, linking it to a lot of different things than just kind of love and beauty. So
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that to us. And this is just the beginning of this conversation. And I love that you will be offering these workshops and ways for people to experience this shift. So thank you and I will be putting all the information in the description down if you're curious to look into it more. So thank you, Alicia, for bringing all of this.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love to go deep with it. So I will offer a workshop with the full story and all of the dates and information. So if that's how people want to experience it and come to more wisdom with Venus and how that works for them, I'm excited to offer that. And we talk about it in our moon circles as well. I have a moon circle community that Ulrika and I attend together and get to share our wisdom with the people that like to show up for that kind of information. And we are always talking about what gate is Venus in our moon
Yeah.
circles. So it's been really wonderful working with you, Ulrika. Thank you so much for being a light for this new information on this planet and helping to enlighten and bring awareness to it.
Oh,
It's
you're
wonderful.
welcome. And thank you for bringing up the Moon Circle. That's an awesome group. So everyone, look it up. I'll put the information below, and it's just a wonderful way to have a regular conversation about this. So thank
Exactly.
you. All
Yeah.
right. And next episode will be coming out soon for that next video.